Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I'm loving it. I've just noticed your very cool backdrop. What is that going on in your backdrop?
Which or where?
The brown door.
Those are samples that need to go up at some point. That over there is
Yeah.
well, basically this is a new office that we moved into. So we've still got the London office,
Yeah.
but then COVID hit and we didn't want to be going up into London. So myself and Nathan both live sort of near the Ashdown Forest in Sussex.
Nice. Yeah.
So just complete serendipity. Nathan drove past when he was going on an essential food mission. That's why he was out. He drove past this place that he's never been to, and he drove past it every day. And he literally went down the drive because there was a thing saying offices for rent. And it's a big, huge manor house with like 1,000 acres.
That's what.
But it's
Yeah.
sort of crawling. It's like crumbling to bits, really. But it's quite cool. We've got like the main one with the balcony and stuff, looking over the drive and across the forest and that. So
Of course.
yeah, it's a little bit
The
back.
Lord of the Manor
Yeah,
on his balcony.
Literally, when we took it, the guy, because he's still the guy who owns it. His whole family is still here, and he was like, "I don't want to see you loading it up on the balcony." I was like, "Fine."
But that's the one thing that I really want to do.
Well, on Fridays we're having gin and tonics, right?
Oh my god, I love that. I like that serendipity, how that works. Like you're trying to find something, then it's just there one day, but you weren't intentionally setting out to do it. On the way for coffee, and suddenly you come back with an office.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic, and we won't move out of here now. We'll probably go to London like 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And Nathan and I'll work out of here, and some of the other guys are even coming down. And we got fat at the beginning of lockdown, like I think everybody did, and then we moved into this office and started coming in, and because we've got the forest, it's like 5k walk on lunchtime.
Yeah.
It's quite nice.
Oh my god, dream. Yeah, dream.
So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, we maybe should do the podcast. So I should welcome you formally. Welcome to Another Door, Gareth.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So. One of the things that we're talking about when we're thinking about reinvention is a lot of people would love to break out of that in-house role. They would love to go it alone, freelance, but somebody somewhere has an ambition to actually set up their own agency. And I think we've all been there where we've sat in corporate roles and we're bringing in people who have set up companies and agencies, and we're like, why am I on this side? I would like to be on the other side. But actually there's quite a lot of mindset work and a lot of kind of stuff you got to do to get yourself in that place. You've done it. I wanted to talk to you about it. Probably first of all, I should address that I've slightly exaggerated the title of Clubhouse to Spaceport, but it was all for effect.
Yeah. I mean, it's an exaggeration. It's more that it's completely incorrect. But apart from that,
but it just sounds so good. Well, I met you in Clubhouse. Maybe that could that work?
No. So to sort of intro myself,
properly.
I am a product designer by sort of trade. Studied that at university. Then went into transport design. Just serendipity. I won a competition to design a table for a yacht. Got an internship at a transport company, and that then sort of led through doing automotive design, marine, little bit of rail, and aviation, private jets and things like that. But whilst I was at that agency, I then started working for Virgin Atlantic on the upper class suite. And we were one of the two agencies that were kind of contracted from the main design team at Virgin. And then I went from there to the engineering company that was doing a lot of the concepts and innovation around the mechanisms of the seats and things. And then from there, I went to the Virgin in-house design team when Adam Wells left and went to head up Virgin America. So that was my road through the sort of Virgin world. So it started very early in sort of my career, really. And I've been lucky enough to sort of move around all aspects of it, from sort of concept and sketch and stuff right through to getting into the nitty-gritty of the engineering of how mechanisms work and all that kind of stuff. So it's quite nice to have that breadth of things to be able to play with, and having that understanding. Like when I started Virgin, I got through in the deep end straight into sort of steering teams and things. But because I knew everything, it wasn't quite as daunting as it could have been. It was good fun.
In summary, it was good fun.
In summary,
I think that example of your story and your experience, it just goes to show that actually it's about opportunity and shaping. I think a lot of people get stuck in, well, this is just who I am. I am just an agency person. I am just an engineer. I am just a product. I am just yacht table designer, which has got to be like the coolest thing you've ever designed, maybe. But and then you get stuck in it. So you have had to reinvent yourself each time, because it is a different. You might have the knowledge, you might have the experience, but it's a very different ask of you. So what's your sort of thinking back? How did you help yourself get yourself in those positions that you said, yeah, I'm up for this, I'm going to keep evolving?
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I suppose it's quite a negative way to get to positivity, but mine generally I get frustrated with either speed that things are happening, or the outcomes aren't as amazing as I'd like them to be, and I'm not necessarily in control of those things. So that for me is when I feel myself getting a little bit frustrated. And you have to check yourself, because you find yourself in meetings not being horrible, but being a little bit edgy about things, and a little bit less like encompassing of views and things. If you can recognise that, kind of realise that that's not about the people in the room. That's about you being at a place where you think that you need to be moving on, or you need to be doing something in a different way. And a lot of the time, I find, certainly from a corporate point of view. I mean, I suppose to encapsulate, I had 10 years at Virgin Atlantic, and that was basically my apprenticeship. We talk about apprenticeships now being such a valuable thing, and there's not as many of them around, and we talk about them as, sort of craftsmanships and trades and things like that. So, my dad's a carpenter joiner, he's retired now, but he did like 20 years of just learning how to do a certain joint or something. And they had that whole thing set up. And it wasn't quite that same way at Virgin, but it felt like that because it was such a tiny team when I joined. There was still a level of excitement there, and we were doing something that was completely innovative in terms of a ground up seat design. There was a bit of cloak and dagger. Not everybody knew about it. It felt like a startup sort of environment. Richard actually popped in now and again, and Steve was fantastic. He knew all about it. He wanted to be involved, and having that advocacy of those kind of people, supporting what you're doing and making it feel like it's something that's important to the company is fantastic. But I think you have your years of that, and particularly the aviation industry it's very slow in its cycles, because it basically cycles around aircraft and airframes. So it'll be Airbus 1 year, and then it'll be another 2 years before you might switch to a Boeing aircraft, and it might come back to Airbus. But the time it takes to do, new interiors, which is what I was doing mainly, so seats, bars, wardrobes, monuments, all the kind of interior kind of items, it just takes such a long time. And so, from first sort of sketch through to install might have been 3-4 years if you're unlucky with a delay on an aircraft and stuff. And sometimes it just got canned. So, A380, all that work never actually got anywhere. So I was pretty lucky on my cycles that I had, 4 aircraft, and all different interiors. And I think by 787, which is my sort of last aircraft, I was then realizing that I was getting frustrated rather than enjoying the process. So the aircraft before that, what was that, 330s, I think it was, Airbus. So that process I enjoyed because you were still honing your technique. You were learning how to negotiate things that people didn't want to do. You were working with outside manufacturers and, trying to get Boeing and Airbus to do things that they didn't want to do, you kind of other people, trying to differentiate for the best thing for the brand. So that, I felt like once I started doing 787, I got to the point where I was kind of like, okay, I can do this. It's not pushing me anymore. It's not. And I was getting frustrated internally because I was going, where do I go from here? I was, asking management for, promotions and stuff, and through no fault of their own, there wasn't a mechanism to move forward on that. So I think, at some point the penny dropped and I went, right, I'm going to have to do something here. I either have to go and find a job at another corporate. And I went and I interviewed at a few places and it just didn't feel right. And then I started talking to the guy who used to sit next to me, who still sits next to me. He's not there, but he sits there. Nathan Sparshot. So I worked with him for the 10 years. He started about the same time as me. And we both work in the same design team. And we started to hatch a plan to set up on our own. And we took advantage of, some loose hours during work time, shall we say. The advantage of working in the design team, you do have these secret places where you can go and hide in mock-ups. And nobody knows where you are. We're doing important things. So we did a bit of that. And we then had the audacity. And, I think the thing is, when you make a decision that your time at a place is potentially at an end, you do get a level of freedom where you kind of go, okay, well, I've now released that sort of all that baggage that you were carrying. You kind of go, I'm doing something about it. It's positive change. I don't know what it is yet, but I now know that my next step is somewhere else. And so we started to sort of toy with ideas around how we could help the Virgin design team whilst exiting the building. So we actually put together a whole business plan for us leaving, but still continuing to do the piece of work. And it didn't get the reception that we might have hoped. But looking back on it, I don't think it was a bad thing to do. And I think if other people might have viewed it at the time, it might have been seen as a good thing because they end up outsourcing anyway. They've got to train people up. They've got to bring people in. They've got wages. But I think the thing is it's around this sort of almost this cloak and dagger around leaving a company and having to go, I'm off sick today because I've got an interview. And like this, and there's no support. It's always seen as such a bad thing. I think companies and organizations need to really think about how they support people and deal, and also on reflection from themselves, deal with the rejection of somebody saying, I want to leave. Because it's not necessarily about them. It's usually, about the person who wants to leave to move on. And they're not saying they hate the people anymore and the company and they've had a great time, but it's just at that point where they need to move and do something else and reinvent themselves potentially. So that's where my driver was from. And then we came up with the idea that we could join with an existing agency that I'd been working with for probably 5 years at Virgin. And it was literally this way around because you could, I can see people could see it with the lens of, are these guys hatching this whole plan the whole time? It was like, why are these guys? But as it happened, it was kind of quite just a natural process that the architectural agency that I was working with they wanted to move away from, because they were doing cabin interiors with me, but they were an architecture practice and their primary business was luxury houses for very rich people around the world. And that supported quite a small team, and it was ups and downs, and it was quite intensive in terms of the labour. You've got people phoning you up from Singapore every hour of the day to talk about what taps they want in the guests' ensuites, dogs, bathroom, whatever. It's that sort of level, and that's what you expect. And they wanted to move more towards commercial work. So as part of the work that Nathan and I used to do, we used to do a lot of service design and flow and experience and all those kind of stuff. So that slots across quite easily into architecture, and it also, we'd had the experience from being an in-house team to know how to negotiate, how to talk with lots of different manufacturers, how to switch into different vernaculars when you're talking to different kind of groups of people, and just, that role of trying to get change through and trying to, pitch and sign off and things like that. So we started talking to them, and within about 3 months, we sort of hatched a plan to leave Virgin, shut down the existing agency and start a new agency together that was that had sort of 4 or 5 different disciplines. So in theory, it was robust if different markets went up and down. So if luxury hotels weren't doing well, we'd do furniture. If airlines weren't doing well, we'd do automotive. Yeah. So we moved around on that was the idea that we had sitting around the table in St. Lucia. Not on the final 3 flights from Virgin Atlantic, because that would be unethical.
But we did.
But we did. Yeah, it was. We thought we'd better make a blast of it for the last one. So that's where we kind of all had a weekend and really sat down and kind of went through it, and said, right, let's do it. And then bizarrely, again by pure chance, the biggest job we got straight off the bat was designing activations for Delta Airlines across Europe, which we'd never done and we weren't pitching to do, but somebody made a phone call, somebody had a coffee, and it was suddenly, well, okay, yeah, we can do that. And so, I don't know what the budgets were. It was millions of pounds. It was a European tour. So it was Zurich and Madrid and Rome and everywhere. And we literally built everything from scratch, build these whole events and go around. And we'd never done any of that before. But I think inherently, as a designer, you're constantly questioning things and how to do stuff. And it's always new, because if it's not new, it's boring. So that's how we ended up doing that, really. And we haven't done any since, because they're very high pressure. And my wife does this, and I'm quite happy not to do events and activations ever again, unless somebody wants to pay money for it. It's just time. It's like when you try to get out of the house in the morning. That's when you have the arguments, because it's all fine until there's a time pressure, and it's just time pressure. So yeah, I'm not going back on.
I like that you had a go, even though you had no experience, and I think that's part of the message, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of messages there. So, like, the first one is, I love what you said right at the beginning. Like, you realise your frustration, and you actually heard yourself going, I'm just fed up of this. Yeah. How many people just then stay in place? They don't actually think, well, I need to do something about it. They just blame everyone else. I think we've all been there, where we've kind of blaming everyone in the room apart from ourselves for our frustration. So that's the first thing, like taking ownership of your frustration. I think that's really powerful, actually. The second thing that crossed my mind, and it's never crossed my mind until this point, is that some industries are seasons, cycles. So actually your work will be going up and down, and that is part of it. It's not always like progression. Never crossed my mind, even though I worked in aviation for 5 years. I suppose it's a bit different what I was doing, but you're right. So you've got to find your way in your industry to sort of mold yourself with that, and accept that actually this is what's coming. And that last bit that you just said, like, all right, we've never done it before, we're going to find a way. And that's got to be massive mindset, though. So what was there fear when you start doing that, when you start stepping out alone?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, there was, I think people was very supportive, and I think if I'd have done it now, it would have felt, I mean, who knows, but maybe it would have felt a bit more normal, because a lot more people are talking about it, and a lot more people are saying you should be thinking about what you want to do, not trying to keep a steady job for the rest of your life. And bearing in mind, I was working with engineers at Virgin for a lot of my days, which were, they were there for life, and then it was retirement. That was just the way it was. So you've got that sort of mindset as well, which is sort of a little bit old school, and the safety of it and everything. But I think I began to realise that there's a big veil that a company brand will pull over you, it's a little bit wish the boss, and once you start to look past it and you start to understand that actually nothing's safe and they're not sitting in meetings thinking about how to look after, your path and your career and things like that. Everybody's got their own thing going on. And so you have this weird thing where you think, oh, I'm safe, I've been here a long time, it's a good wage, I've got the pension coming up. And then you realise that actually that is in a position of non-control, effectively. Because if anything happens, you can't do anything about it. Apart from then pivot and try and quickly do something else or get another job somewhere else. So, and I think we've seen that certainly with COVID, but we had those periods at Virgin where, there was, I think they called them the infill periods, which was strange because they were when they were making people redundant. But they had those periods where you kind of went, hold on a minute.
Oh my God, infill. You just, I used to work on that project infill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a play on words, I should say. But you begin to realise that you're not in control of what where you're going and what you're doing, and you kind of.
You've got me thinking now. I just need to justify this now.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to justify the project title. Infill was the gap between the budget and what we were actually making. We were trying to fill in the gap to keep the business going. That's why it was infill. I don't know. I'm making it up. Anyway, I'll let you keep going because I just felt a sudden urge to defend this project. Corporate nonsense.
Yeah, corporate nonsense. But you do find that once you kind of look behind the curtain, you realise that it's not really about you. And as much as Virgin was a great place and the people were nice people and they did everything they could for you, you weren't top of their list for the day job of where's this person going and what's their career going to be. So I think once you start realising that, you kind of go, well, okay, so maybe the risk isn't that big to set up on your own and do something. And then I just mitigated that by roping in the person which he has to sit on the left. It's an Ant and Dec thing. We tried when we left. What was it? Is it 8 years now? We tried him on the right, it didn't work. It felt weird, so he's back on the left.
Got to be there.
Yeah. Took myself and Nathan, took ourselves comfort blankets, and then we joined with somebody who was already so thankfully, straight off the bat, we could concentrate on getting work and doing the work as opposed to having to figure out, right, how do you do your tax returns? How do you set up? How do you register? All of that was we had a bookkeeper, we had an accountant, that was all sort of there. So that incubation of that was fantastic. But interestingly, the mindset when I left, my key worry was about being able to do the work, have the talent to do it to a standard, and clients being happy with what we do. And you very quickly realise that that imposter syndrome sort of drifts away. It's always there, but drifts away. That suddenly you realise actually it's not about that, because you can do that, and you have a proven track record of it, and people are always going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed so far, people are always amazed by the output of the work, the beautifulness and the invention and all that kind of stuff is all a given to a certain extent from our point of view. What you don't realise is that suddenly you become this salesperson, which you've never done in your life.
Yeah.
And you're constantly one eye on what's coming down the pipeline, and reaching out to network and trying to find ways to get in under the radar while the big guns on taking the big pitches and things. So that was a massive learning curve, and still is, because it evolves. Yeah. I think mitigating as much risk as you can by having people who have some experience. Maybe you could do that through, I suppose the equivalent of board members advising you, sort of mentoring and things like that. But equally, I think the playing field has changed now, where people are far more open to going towards smaller and more freelance people. Whereas before that was a scary thing for a big company to do. And I think they've realised now that the risk's kind of the same.
That's changed,
whether it's huge or small. And equally, I think they've realised that the quality you can get from, quality freelance, one person on their own, like yourself, kind of doing comms work and stuff, the work you can get from these people and the talent that comes from it, if you're managing exactly what that brief is going in, you know what your budget is, you're getting a piece of work back. Whereas you go to a massive agency, you might get the interns doing the work. It's going to be charged on a monthly retainer rate, and that people are realising talent is out there. And I think the talent pool has only grown because more and more people are doing it. Every time I've had people speak to me about starting up on their own, my next neighbour's just started up on his own actually, and we had a good chat about stuff. And I've had some guys that are out in the States who are setting up a little retail thing as well. I'm always like, go for it, guys. And if you want to get on the phone to me, and I'll talk nonsense at you and try and help wherever I can. I'm a big advocate for it.
I think that's a good point. Asking, you got to get yourself in a zone that you're going to ask for help, ask the questions, and don't hide in the shade of, oh, this feels a bit stupid. Because I think in corporate, we sort of pre-program not to ask stupid questions because we're paid to be the solution. But then when you're setting up on your own, and suddenly when you're on your own, you've got to just get over yourself and get in that place of like, right, I need to make this work. I just need to ask all the stupid questions and just get this done. So important. I think the other thing you mentioned there as well is there's all sorts of different shapes of what you can do when you start on your own. Like you just described about 5 there, which is, you might be a freelancer, but you can work with an agency that works with a company. You can be an associate. You can kind of do partnership work. So it's a good point, actually, that you don't have to just be this purist person sitting alone. You can actually form collaborations, which are really just as powerful.
Yeah, and I think that ability to be able to have freedom of choice, to do whatever you wanted to do. I mean, we did do it the hard way by, that first Delta job was, that was massive amounts of fear because that was well out of our comfort zone. Even logistics of like, does everything fit in a truck? Because if it doesn't, we've got to find another truck, and it's got to be on the Eurotunnel, and it's got to get to Zurich. And then we've like local crew are kind of handballing it upstairs, and does it fit through a door? And somebody's got a chop saw on the floor cutting stuff because it doesn't fit. No, it was just chaos. But on that night, that first night that we did, there was a moment where it filled up with all the crew, all the VIP started turning up because it wasn't an open event; it was a proper like platinum sort of medallion, whatever they were, and we had Malin guests flown over from the States, set up a big apothecary. We built the equivalent of the Sky Lounge in the middle. We did all this stuff that we were just like, oh, well, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this, let's do that. And then like you've got Perry turns up, their he wasn't their CEO, COO maybe at the time. And it's like, this is amazing. And you're like, well, this is what you normally do, isn't it? No, we don't. We just do a little thing over there. We're like, what? And we're like, right, okay. So there's that. There was that. I think that was the first moment when that all started. People started drinking champagne. I went off to the corner at the back of house and just stood there and looked at it all. And that was pretty emotional to go. We've delivered, and we had no idea whether we could do that.
But even better. Damn, we didn't need to try so hard. Which is another lesson. Really listen to what people want is such a big lesson, because now you've got the standard of Virgin, which, to be fair, Virgin did do everything over and above, and everything you guys did was immaculate, but actually that's not what everybody wants. So even that is a challenge of actually, do you need to over-deliver every time? No, you just need to deliver for people. Probably a bit of a challenge.
I'm going to over-deliver every time. I have to. It's just the way, and it's certainly Voon Wong's our architecture director. He was trained in the Zaha Hadid studio. You know, he was sitting next to her being shouted at when he was a kid. And his level of detail, like nothing's. And you've got to remember, I worked under sort of Joe Ferry and Steve and Alison and Dee and all those kind of people. And you know, that again was the level of, you walked into a meeting and something wasn't quite right and it wasn't ready and you knew you were trying to get away with it. They'd just stop the meeting and go, come back when it's done. And so you were trained that level of like, but what I find now is that in those years where, when you're working for a corporate, you were constantly covering your arse because there was always different departments and politics. You know, I really don't miss the politics of department. And sometimes you're just a pawn in the middle of it, but equally sometimes you're involved in it. And you're like, can we just get on with it? But having to cover yourself and then pull out, you know, every now and again there'd be a meeting where you'd all be pulled in and go, right, I want the email chain showing this decision process and what you did here, and they'd have a big argument and that'd all kind of, and so that naturally makes you very sort of closed with what you're doing, and the process is everything. Whereas now, and it took me a couple of years, I'm much more free with, just do it, be fine, just go with it. And, you know, we'll work out the consequences if consequences happen.
Yeah. That's relearning though, and actually don't underestimate that for you, because you're right. I mean, that sort of world of Virgin that you're in, you're right, that was just pre-programmed, and now you're having to relearn it. So yeah, the fact that you've just said that took you a couple of years is probably an important point. You don't just leave a job and the next day you can just do things different. You've got to really work on yourself and catch yourself doing this stuff, don't you?
Oh yeah, I mean, it took me at least 2 years to not say we when I was talking about Virgin. At least, you know, I'd have to stop myself in meetings where I was doing pitches for work and stuff as Viewport when I talk about a bit of Viewport work we've done for Virgin. I've had, you know, really struggled for my brain to go, it's them, it's the past tense, you don't work for them anymore. And so you can't underestimate what effect a current corporate and a brand has on you. Yeah. And so, you know, most of it's good, but when you're trying to shake it off, it's difficult at times. Yeah,
you find a whole new you, hence reinvention. There's a new you. Right, so the final bit is, which, you know, I headlined from Clubhouse to Spaceport, which is probably more like from the bar on the plane or the flatbed on the plane to the spaceport. But how did you find yourself designing a spaceport? And at what point did you catch yourself doing that and think, what am I actually working on?
Yeah, so we've been posting a bit on, because actually, you know, this is again those sort of cycles things. So spaceport was, you know, it kept being delayed because of, you know, testing and the complexities of actually getting a spaceship up. Our bit was finished kind of really 2 years ago now, and it's just been sitting there in, you know, the first level of spaceport and second level, so mission control, ops, briefing rooms, main lounge, and the other kind of entertainment space and astronaut walk. We did all of those things, they've been sitting there, so we've just started talking about it. But that process, and I think it's true of virtually every project we've done, has come from existing network. And you know, I can't think of anything where we've gone in blind. We've won a few competitions and stuff, but I can't think of anything where we've gone for big pitches, like we've gone out to you know, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and we've gone out to America and sat down and did big pitches to lots of people, and they've never landed. Whereas all the big stuff that we have landed had always been through somebody had recommended, have a chat with these guys, or it was somebody that we used to know who's moved on to a different place. And you know, I think the fact that you've worked in a corporate for a decent amount of time, you naturally build quite a big network of people. It's much easier now with LinkedIn, obviously, but I've always made an effort to keep in touch with friends and colleagues. It's just, you know, naturally what I do anyway, thankfully. And that might just be the odd random photo that I find.
I think it's quite unusual that someone kind of just picks the phone up and goes, do you fancy designing a space station, well, a
Yeah.
spaceport. I mean,
Yeah.
that's quite a call.
Yeah, it was odd because we were really deep in the project at the time. We were doing a Dimension studio in Wimbledon, which was a 4D capture studio, one of the first in the world. They'd licensed it from Microsoft out in Everett. And so we were designing the whole experience for how this works, and they've had Madonna and football players and everything. They do 4D capture, and it's all we use for movies and everything. So we were up on a mezzanine that had just been built, and we just had a call from, had a text from Adam, which wasn't unheard of. So Adam was head of design for Virgin Galactic, who was head of design for Virgin America. He was then Virgin Group before that, and before that, he was sitting at the desk that I then started sitting at Virgin Atlantic. So, and also Mark Butler was there. I don't know if you remember Mark Butler.
Yeah.
So they were looking for agencies, and we happened to send out a piece of product sort of design that we've done called Silt, which is a beautiful. It uses Chinese purple clay. And it's like a really old casting mechanism. They used to, the little teapots you get.
Yeah.
And the idea is that it's quite a porous material, and all of the minerals from the clay enrich whatever you're drinking as you're kind of going through it. So we did a modern take on the form of that with a picture and coffee and everything.
Nice.
And we sent one out to Adam, and the first inkling we got was Adam sent us a photo of it sitting outside the core 10 doors of the hangar. Because again, obviously Foster's and Partners had done that. That had been built like 4 or 5 years ago before, and it was just sort of sitting there empty. And so we got this picture, and the colour of the doors and the colour of the clay was matching nicely, and you got patina on both of them. And he was like, "This looks amazing, I love this," and all the rest of it. And then he said, "Can we have a quick call?" And we're like, "Right." So Nathan and I are literally sitting with an iPhone between us on this mezzanine that's just been built in a warehouse in Wimbledon. And they start asking questions, and Nathan looking at us going, I think they're asking us whether we want to do work on the spaceport. It is bizarre the way these things sort of twist.
But then this again, I love this because you took opportunity. I think sometimes people think, oh, it's just who you know and blah blah blah. Yeah. No, you got proactive. You sent that out there. You put yourself in front of someone. You sort of edged that idea. You placed an idea in their head. So it is about using your network, but keep placing yourself in front of people in creative ways, in different ways, and just edging yourself there. It is about that, isn't it?
It is about that. It's definitely about that. It's just trying to keep in touch, and the opportunities you never, because it's timing as well. It could be completely right, but the timing's wrong. And so you've just got to keep getting lines in the water as many as you can, and keep boiling around and see what you can pull in. But I think as soon as you do get that, you then go into, well, I certainly go into over-delivery mode. So it's like, because they were looking at other agencies, it wasn't like you've got the job guys. I then put down the phone and we went back to the office and we got everybody around and went, right, we've got 2 weeks, hammer it. Get your head down, none of us are going home, let's make this phenomenal by the end of that. And then, because you feel invested, especially if it's somebody that you feel invested to pay back that trust. And once the feeling you get from that at the end of it, that feeling of sort of almost giving back is phenomenal, because you're then like, right, they've trusted us, we've delivered, they now look good, they're happy with the work that we're doing, and we can carry on doing that work. So we don't want to work with people that we don't enjoy working with. And it's something we're doing a big job for the Wales Millennium Centre. They're redoing the complete front of house, but that's Alison Copus is there now, and she kind of reached out. They were doing some bits of work with different people. I saw a few things, and I was like, this isn't right. This isn't good enough. And I didn't tell her, but I went away and got.
You could tell by your face of like.
Yeah. I just kind of, just nothing.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
Oh God, I actually remember that feeling of you guys, like when you used to come and like talk about something, and it was quite intimidating to go to the design team in Virgin Atlantic, and you all used to have that expression of like nothing, just like.
Yeah. It's when people start using the phrase "interesting." Interesting, yeah. You like. Yeah, but again, go away.
Yeah.
I don't advocate free pitching. I think it's a terrible thing to do. I think it's
interesting.
not a good thing for anyone, because I think it breeds work that is vacuous and doesn't have the insights that it should have, because the work that you can do for a company is only as good as the inputs and the insights you can get out of that company. So I'm not saying I want an absolutely specific rock solid brief, because I don't like those either. But I want access. So, what I generally say is, if somebody wants some free work to assess us against somebody, I will say, okay, we'll do that work if we think it's worthwhile. But I want at least an hour with you and your team sitting down, talking about your organization, what you're looking to do, values, all that sort of stuff. And if you won't give me that time, I won't do the free brief, because I can't deliver magic from nowhere.
Yeah.
And people just giving you that time, I think that generally weeds out whether they're just trying to fill their procurement requirements of free agencies or something. So
that's
I think
interesting. Yeah. I like what you're doing as well, that you're setting out how you want to do stuff. And that's another thing I think people need to find their way. Like, how do I want to own this? And you've almost put yourself in a place of, actually, people are buying your energy. It's kind of guaranteed you're going to do a good job, actually. But it's whether the energy is there and the connection is there. So if you get a connect and you're both in the same place, job done, you're going to create something amazing. But so that's where the work sits. The work sits is, are we connecting? Is there an alignment? Is there energy here? That's the point. It's not, as you say, it's not just pitch and get. It's actually, no, we're trying to find a connection here. It's very different mentality. Yeah,
and it is something that's sort of evolved and crystallized over the sort of, the past sort of 7-8 years. But you kind of, it has really manifested itself over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, where I know plenty of other agencies that they'll just pitch like mad on everything, and they'll take whatever they get. And it's a business model, and it works. And some of them are very big. But we don't want to work with people who don't want to work with us and don't enjoy the process and don't enjoy the end product. We can't do that. There's not enough time on Earth for us to do work with people.
Or off Earth, if you want to go up in a spaceship.
I think that's a big thing. I think, that might be a getting older thing as well. You just kind of realise that, why would I spend my time just chasing money? I'd rather do the work that pays less, but the output's more rewarding. So you do have to start thinking about that as well.
You made me think about all sorts of things as well today, because I've just been thinking, God, the last couple of weeks I literally have just taken anything that's come along. Like, I've even thought about it. I've just gone, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can. Yeah. And now I'm like, I wasn't doing that last year. I was living more in your shoes. I think I just kind of lost my way a little bit and went, do that, do this.
You've got to pay the bills. You've got to pay the bills. That is always the balancing act that you're on. But what I've generally found is, if you start doing that, you don't have the time and the openness to find the stuff and do the stuff that you really want.
It's true. It's such a good point. You're kind of filling your time with this stuff you're not really wanting to be doing, and then you're not creating the space for the opportunity that you do. Yeah. Good challenge, reminder. Thank you, Gareth. So, final question. You've obviously put the astronaut suit on. We saw the picture of you with the sneaky outfit.
That was a ladies' one, and I think it was about size 8.
Amazing. Are you going to be going up there?
No, Who knows? I did offer Richard to. I offered him the pitch of we'll design the next spaceport for the contra deal for flights. So let's see. I did throw that.
Love it.
He was kind of going through stuff, and I left it with him because he said, "Are you going up?" I was like, "Richard, it's like £500,000. I know you probably think we're a huge agency because we're designing the spaceport for you. We're chatting to you on Necker, but it's like we're not. 250 grand knocking around. So I said, look, we'll do a deal. So
I
we'll
like
see.
it.
We'll see.
I like it. Oh my God, that would be incredible. Although I'm not sure I'd do it. I'm too claustrophobic, but incredible experience. Brilliant.
Yeah, I think I'd do it.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much for your time. I think that's been really insightful. So many people want to do this, but we all get in our way and we all make mistakes along that way, but it's part of it. And so thank you for sharing that. I hope that people find a lot of sort of inspiration from it. Where can people find you if they want more of Gareth?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm on there, so just whack me in as Gareth Southall, and then you'll see Viewport link there as well. I think don't let the fear stop you. Acknowledge the fear and understand where it's coming from, and then mitigate it as far as you can, and then just jump, because you can't. I think that's the biggest thing you realise when you move out of corporate. Sometimes you have just got to jump and work out how you're going to fall at the bottom, or
how you're going to land.
Flying and falling, all of that. It can paralyze you, but you've got to work past it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been brilliant having you. I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much. And please say hello to Lucy from me.
I will.
The most important person.
Yeah. She's out and about today, actually. I think she's actually gone into the office, maybe.
Wow, that's weird, isn't it? I've not actually left the house since about 2018 or something. I don't know.
I'm going to go
one day.
Raining, then.
Yeah, do it. No, get out. Embrace the rain.
Why not? Right.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Take care.
Thank you for having me. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.